everyone, welcome to another episode of Matz Unfiltered. I'm your host, Matz. I hope your week's been going good. Are you ready for another topic? Today's topic, I can't believe I'm talking about it, is towel art and the fact that it's still around. Towel art, also known as towel origami. For those of you who don't know what it is, I'll give you a little bit of explanation. I'm sure some of you have seen it. It's basically your hotel towel that is now shaped in an animal of some sort, normally elephant and swans. They were absolutely huge in the 90s, and they're normally placed on your bed. I'm pretty sure most of you have experienced and seen some towel art or towel origami. As I mentioned, it was huge in the 80s. Nothing wrong with the 80s. I love retro. But this particular practice needs to go. It's so outdated and it means nothing. Until it becomes trendy again, I think I'm happy to get rid of towel art or towel origami. As I mentioned, traditionally you see swans, either the single swan, or if you're in the honeymoon suite, you get two swans facing each other, kissing, or elephants, a mummy elephant and a baby elephant. And today we're going to explain, or I'm going to discuss why I think it needs to go, and that hotels really need to up their game and change why they should stop doing this. There is an exception to the rule. Now, unless you're Kate Chastain from Below Deck and you're going to make anatomically correct towel art in my room, then yes, I'm all for that version. In fact, I challenge Kate to make the same towel art using a hand towel. I'd love to see her do that. But unless you're a reality TV star on Bravo or working on super yachts, then I don't think it needs to be around. What's frightening is that there are actually YouTube videos teaching you how to make different types of towel art. Now, I've seen a couple where someone put on some really funny towel art on the toilet, which I thought was kind of funny. But if you're really, truly training to learn how to make towel art and you're planning to put it in your hotel or your B&B, please don't. It doesn't mean anything. And that's really where the challenge of towel art is, that I don't understand why you're putting it on the hotel guests as an experience. Unless you have swans in your hotel or elephants roaming around, it has no meaning at all. It's also an extra piece of work that your housekeeping staff has to do. So my question to hoteliers is, why do you do it? If it doesn't mean anything to your business, and more importantly, what does it mean for the consumer? As a guest, it means that I've got to, before I go to bed, remove these little hand towels and chuck them somewhere. And by the way, let's not just blame the hand towels or the towels. We should also put the spotlight on a flora, petal. I get a lot of petal art. Most of the time when I'm checking in, I'm on my own. And I don't need a heart shape made out of rose petals or palm tree fronds. I also don't need fronds or any kind of foliage on my bed. What's irritating about it is that, first of all, it doesn't do anything for me. Second of all, before I go to bed, what I have to do, I have to just flick my bed sheet, get rid of it all, so it's then on the floor. So in the morning when I wake up, I'm stepping onto wilted, very unhappy, sort of dying petals and some kind of leaf, foliage, frond. I don't need it. In fact, even if I was on my honeymoon, I couldn't imagine anything worse. I couldn't imagine someone thinking that that's a romantic gesture to take perfectly good, fresh, beautiful flowers, rip their heads off, chuck petals everywhere as a sign of romance and love. And then somehow you've got to clean it up. Or as I say, wake up in the morning and you're basically walking on wilted whatever. That's just me. But I think not all of these are hotel practices, that there is a disconnect from what the hotel is thinking and what the consumer is expecting. And that's really about what your brand and your aesthetic is saying about you. Hotels that I love to stay in have a really clear understanding of their brand and what they stand for and what they focus on. And they don't do things just for the sake of doing it. It's not a practice that they go, well, we inherited them from the 80s, so we're going to keep making towel elephants when there are no elephants in my country. Or we're going to put a couple of swans kissing when there are no swans nearby. And what I love about some of these hotels that understand it is that they understand how to design intentionally, be sympathetic to their environment. And there's a few I'm going to mention. The Asamaya in Bali. I really enjoyed my stay there. Don't go if you're a tourist. It's not for you. I love that it's a small boutique, well-designed, sympathetic hotel. Everything about them, from their food to the way the rooms are decorated, to the soaps, shampoos that they use, they try to source locally. One of the things that I loved was their lights. She's made by a local designer in the concept of fishing nets. And their sheets were not your traditional, just the standard cotton. It was brush cotton, because they're all about nature, but luxury. They really understood that. I love that. It was all meaningful. Everything that they did was meant based on their own style. Or my recent stay at the Anjali by Siphon in Siem Reap. That was amazing. Yes, they had some shower issues, which hopefully they fixed. But again, everything that they designed within the hotel was really taking on their own concept. Where they were located, the main road, there's nothing to really look there. There's just a main road in Siem Reap. But once you walk through, you really felt like you were taken to somewhere different. In fact, I love their dining bowls, all the stuff that they used, so much so that I bought a couple to take home. As I mentioned, everything was well thought out and designed in that way. Hotels, and you may seem surprised, but there are a lot of them who haven't evolved. They're stuck in this time warp that they lived in, where in the 80s they were making huge amounts of money. They had a lot of guests come and stay who loved the format of hotels, the services that were on offer then. They've still kept that on. So, they'll leave you a bowl of fruit, but the bowl of fruit is fruit that doesn't really come from that area. Print out a letter of welcome. GM still do this, especially in business hotels where you've got over 300 rooms. Why? Sending me a not personalized message is so redundant. Don't do it. But as I mentioned, a lot of these owners still stick to the original concept that made them money in the 80s, and they haven't evolved. And it's really time to change that. Part of the reason is that particularly since Airbnb jumped out and people moved away from sleeping on couches, a lot of homeowners have created beautiful, interesting spaces where the traveler is fascinated by the environment and where they're staying. And stay has become more than just a hotel bed. And yes, a lot of that has to do with the irritating Instagrammable moments. But, the benefit of that is it also gets your business talked about across social media. But for me, it's more than just the Instagrammable moments. It's about taking care of your consumer, understanding when they're coming to stay, what their expectations are, and how you want them to feel about your brand and your property. I talked about that impersonal printed message. When I stay in Singapore, I stay at the Amoy. It's a really small hotel. I've had colleagues from other parts of the world, predominantly the US, where they complain about the size of the room. Having stayed at different hotels, in Japan and other places, the size of the room, I'm okay. I know it's small. But what I love about that hotel is that they don't bother with giving me a bowl of fruit or things that have no meaning, but they'll send me a little message written by hand, someone from front office, and they'll write, "Good night, Sarah. Have a good sleep." And I love that. I love that they've put a little bit of thought. It didn't cost them a massive amount of time, and it just shows that consideration. And I think that's what consumers want. Or the time when I stayed at the Oberoi in Kolkata. Now, granted, it's the Oberoi, so you know you're going to get service. And that's some of the amazing thing about especially the top-notch hotels in India, where if you're staying at the Taj or the Oberoi or the Leela ITC, they're going to give you amazing service. But again, it's the little details that always capture me. I had a rip in my shirt, and the hotel butler, my room butler, really kindly went and had it mended, and it was beautifully done. I was well taken care of anyways, but it was the extra little step that he went to make sure that he paid attention to what I had and what I was doing. And I think that's also the redefining of what luxury is. Yes, I know they're the ultra wealthy celebrities and they have their own version, but actually all of us want luxury. But luxury isn't just about a private jet and all of those things that not necessarily all of us can afford, but it's about the attention to detail. And I think things like towel art, petals thrown everywhere, foliage that makes no sense, they don't mean anything to the guest. And so that's the problem. You lose your consumer, you lose the message of your brand because you're not paying attention to it. So my advice to hotels is you've got to start questioning practices that don't serve your current customer. Think holistically about where your guests are going to have a touch point, an opportunity to reinforce your brand story. What about you? Have you guys experienced meaningless hotel traditions, or you've got an experience or a photograph of some kind of towel art that isn't the shape of a swan or elephant? I'd love to see it. Don't forget to comment and tag us on Matz Unfiltered. And for hoteliers, start listening to your consumers, look at the services that you offer, and just make some small tweaks and see if that makes a change. Join me next week when I'm going to be talking about a theme that I'm going to be covering in a lot of episodes, and that's travelers, or I should say tourists, behaving badly. It drives me up the wall. And my topic for next week is tourists behaving badly in museums. Any of you saw the piece where a couple broke this beautiful Swarovski chair? We're going to talk about that next week and what I think museums should be doing to manage badly behaving tourists. Don't forget to subscribe to Matz Unfiltered on Spotify and YouTube, and join me next week for another no BS take on our travel industry. See you next week.